I will call this meeting to order, the regular Transportation and Public Works Committee, this day, February 25th, 2014. I am Councilmember Reich, chairing the committee. I am joined by Council members Yang, Glidden, Palmisano, Bender, and Gordon. We are a quorum and can conduct the committee's business. We have 11 items today, including a public hearing, but I'll begin with the consent items, beginning with item number 2. Which is the Lowry Hill East Area Street Resurfacing Project. It's approved a resolution designating the location and improvements proposed. Receive the cost estimate of $717,368. List the benefited properties. Direct the city engineer to prepare proposed special assessments against those properties. And set the public hearing for April 15, 2014. Item 3 is regards the Nicollet Central Modern Streetcar Project. It's to authorize, and I have some additional language that's slightly different than what's on the agenda per our legal review. And now I'm not finding that new language. Oh, here it is. And it reads, authorize the proper city officers to amend the existing contract with URS Corporation to complete the additional pre-project development tasks for the Nicollet Central Modern Streetcar Project for an additional amount not to exceed $357,000 for a new contract amount of $1,557,000. Item 4 is the 6th Street Municipal State Aid Variance Request. Approve a resolution directing the city engineer to proceed with a formal request for variance from MSA standards for the parking lane width on the south side of the street from Park Avenue to 11th Avenue South. Item 5 is the MPCA compost rule change comments. Approve comments on the proposed MPCA compost rule changes and direct the Department of Public Works to submit the comments to the MPCA. Item 6 is the Bridge Number 9 Pier 3 repairs. Authorize execution of a temporary construction agreement with the University of Minnesota regarding construction activities and easements on the vicinity of the Bridge Number 9, which goes over the Mississippi River. Item 7 is accept low bid of Sunram Construction Incorporated for an estimated expenditure of $640,460 for stormwater pond dredging. Those are consent items. Does anyone wish to comment or pull an item? Councilmember Gordon.
Mr. Chair, I wanted to pull item number 5 for a substitute that came from the Health, Environment, and Community Engagement Committee yesterday.
Very good. I'll pull that item. Any other items for comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to pull item number 3. I just have a couple of quick questions.
Very good. So we'll pull items 3 and 5. The other items are before us for approval. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Dissenting nay. We'll begin with item number 5. Councilmember Gordon.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. This is something that we discussed yesterday at a HECE committee, and we unanimously approved a substitute that made some maybe one more minor change to the draft that's on the agenda, and then also incorporated a 6th comment that we would support the recommendations of the Minnesota Composting Council regarding their the new source separated organic management facilities, and I would like to move that forward so this committee could approve it as well.
Very good. So I will refer to staff insofar as it affects your ability to comment to that jurisdictional authority. Any comment on this language change?
Yeah, Mr. Chair and Councilmember Gordon, the staff recommended comments, we really tried to keep our review in context with what we feel we have expertise and the ability to comment on and our familiarity with issues in Minneapolis. We certainly are open to adding a general comment about supporting the need for rules that make it very easy and economical for other compost sites to open. The Minnesota Compost Council comments we're just not we haven't had time to vet those, and some of them are quite technical, and it's not that we disagree with them, it's just that we don't feel as staff that we would have the expertise to defend and explain all of those comments, which is the reason we're not coming forth with a recommendation. We certainly wouldn't keep you or wouldn't disagree with you choosing to adopt those. It's just that Public Works staff doesn't feel that we are capable of explaining all of the technical reasons that the Compost Council comments are in there, hence the more limited scope of our Public Works staff comments.
Thank you for that comment. So we can certainly vouch for them as policymakers, but it wouldn't have the technical review to back it.
Correct.
Thank you. Any further comment on CAM's substitute language? All those in favor of approving the language as submitted by Councilmember Gordon?
Aye.
Aye. That carries. Very good. So that item is approved as amended. And then item 3, Councilmember Bender, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. I just wondered if staff could describe, so Nicollet Avenue, so this, my understanding is that this is to extend an existing contract, to do some more thorough engineering around the Nicollet Central streetcar corridor. And I just wanted to understand how bicycle facility design might be incorporated into this piece, because Nicollet is a really important bicycle connection into the south in Ward 10.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Councilmember Bender, and members of the committee. My name is Charlene Zimmer, and I'm representing the project this morning for staff. That's a very good question. We've had a number of conversations already regarding the challenging issue of streetcar and bicycle coexisting in the same corridor. So as we go through the environmental assessment, that's going to be a continuing issue that we're going to be looking at as we develop concept designs. It has everything to do from the detail of where you place the track in the streets, what type of track you use, and how much space and how you've allocated the space in the cross-section. And I think that will vary depending on where we are in the corridor. So a lot of discussion. We'll certainly be bringing that back to the advisory committee and others who have an interest as we proceed.
Thank you.
Very good. Any further discussion on item 3? See none. All those in approval of approving it as stated in the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Dissenting nay. That carries. So that concludes the consent item. We can now move into the public hearing, which regards 51st Avenue North Street resurfacing project.
Mr. Chair, Mike Kennedy, our Director of Transportation Maintenance and Repair, will make a presentation about this project.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Kennedy.
Morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Again, I'm Mike Kennedy, Director of Transportation Maintenance and Repair. Works Department. We're here today with the first of many public hearings for resurfacing projects throughout the city this year. This one is about 51st Avenue North. On January 23rd, 2014, the City Council designated the locations, streets, and improvements proposed to be made on 51st Avenue North. The cost estimate for this project is $174,000 and is financed by net debt bonds and special assessments. The location is 51st Avenue North from Xerxes to Oliver Avenue North. It's a basic street resurfacing project, mill and overlay project. And it will, the special assessment rates that we use are the 2014 uniform assessment rates of 60 cents per square foot for non-residential and 20 cents per square foot for residential properties. So therefore, our recommendation today is to pass a resolution ordering the city engineer to proceed and do the work and adopt special assessments in the amount of $59,316.25 for this project, and pass a resolution requesting the Board of Estimate and Taxation to issue and sell assessment bonds in the amount of $59,320 for this project. There was a pre-public meeting held on February 18th at Creekview Park, and there were a few residents that attended. That's my presentation.
Oh, thank you very much. That's the presentation. Any questions per the presentation? See none, I will open the public hearing. We do have one person signed in, Jeffrey Strand. You can approach and make comment.
Thank you, Chair Reich and committee members. So I'm speaking as a homeowner in the Shingle Creek neighborhood affected by the proposed assessment. I provided the committee clerk with the statement and a copy incomplete for the chair and copies for the committee members.
And Mr. Strand, for the date, today's recording, your name and address, please.
Pardon me?
Your name and address for the...
Oh, I'm sorry, Jeffrey L. Strand, 5100 Thomas Avenue North, here on behalf of myself and my husband, Kim William Jepson. I assume the time is quite limited, so I'll try to be brief, but I'd like to have the entire objection entered in the record, if the chair will allow.
It's been entered.
So, committee and Chair Reich, Mr. Jepson and I, as property owners, formally object to the proposed special assessment of $3,084.95 for our homestead property for the proposed resurfacing, mill and overlay. We're longtime residents of Shingle Creek who have worked to improve our neighborhood, community, and city through our neighborhood organization, my partner and husband as a chair election judge, myself through various volunteer committee advisory capacities on city boards and commissions. We pay our property taxes and our municipal fees timely and gladly pay our fair share of the cost for all municipal services. However, the amount of the proposed special assessment for street resurfacing was, to me, jaw-dropping. I don't know about the committee members' worlds, but considering that this is the least costly improvement when compared to street construction or street renovation. So Mr. Jepson and I respectfully request that this committee direct staff to reconsider the matter to drive a more equitable special assessment. As I noted at the informational meeting, 51st Avenue North is used by Metropolitan Transit bus line to better serve the public. Those buses were rerouted from 49th Avenue North, west of Humboldt. My rationale, and believe me, I conclude, I recognize that the city council has the power and authority here, and especially in light of cases like the, Evans versus City of Winona yesterday, which I strongly support. So we're essentially totally at your discretion, and I understand the uniform levy, but I think there are some unique features in the lands in Javinsky Addition due to historical cross-platting before we homeowners purchase these properties that have a as-applied result that appears to me to provide for unequal treatment and really excessive cost to those parcels. So briefly, the creation of the larger than normal lots, quoting from a City Planning Commission document from 1987, which is normally not the case with cross-platted lots, resulted from the platter or the developer of Javinsky Addition being unable to develop townhomes. He had purchased 5 lots that were in the Englewood Addition that are platted laterally. He wasn't able to build the townhomes because of neighborhood opposition, which I heard after I moved to the neighborhood in 1989. And as a result, he received Planning Commission and presumably city approval to cross-plat lots 1 and 2, block 1 Javinsky Addition, which were roughly 63 by 203 feet. So lovely. I love the city. I love my neighborhood. I love my location. But ironically, the large lots caused this formula to result in a very, very large assessment, in my personal opinion. So you'll also see that in the package, the Director of Engineering Design commented to Mr. Javinsky that Thomas Avenue North, which is adjacent to my home and Ms. Davison's home, has never been improved, and because of substandard soil conditions, the city engineer, assistant engineer at that time said he most likely never would be. And he had no objections to the vacation of the street. Unfortunately, the builder didn't vacate the street, and that was left for the Davisons and myself and Mr. Jepson to work with the late former council member Rainville, starting that process in 1991 and completing it in 1995, doing a lot of handwork ourselves. And that was vacated by Council Action 95R-054. Third point is, I know you don't assess by linear foot, but in terms of a layperson, and I obviously, the council member, if you don't know, I serve on the CLIC committee. I'll disclose that. I've been a CLIC representative from the 4th Ward for many years. Today, I'm standing here as a resident and taxpayer. I don't think I have anything to do with my CLIC work. I respect the public works staff. I commend Ms. Hermstad and Mr. Matsumoto for the pre-planning meeting. Fantastic job. But if you look at the linear footage on 51st, I think it is so out of whack that the two lots in Javinsky Edition, and I'm using 93-foot frontage because that is what I have with the street vacation, I'm assessed $33.06 a linear foot. My neighbor, 33.31. Miss Davison, 1660, and then I just looked at some other properties that are on 51st, and they're in the range of $9, $10, $8. Another point, and I will try to be brief, and I thank you for your forbearance. Obviously, everyone here on the City Council, I think, is aware of the Great Recession and how the mortgage foreclosure crisis emanated out of North Minneapolis into other areas, and so we have all lost significant property value. My own property has declined $104,500 since 2007. That's 45% of my value on paper. Fortunately, I'm not underwater. I'm kind of speaking today for other people. There was a retired woman at the pre-planning meeting who said, I'm $40,000 underwater on my mortgage. Retired senior citizen. Deferral isn't going to help her. Then, if we maintain that if the above objections are not received favorably by the council, we do request an extended payment period, for example, 7 to 10 years, if the council is unwilling to consider other relief. So we thank the Transportation and Public Works Committee for its consideration of our objections and requests. To me, nothing more than common sense would dictate that the proposed special assessments are excessive for the properties with large lots that abut only unimproved or vacated Thomas Avenue North, and there ought to be some reasonable cap in place when applying the square footage formula. And we did pay, for example, in the Shingle Creek West street renovation, we paid $886.35, prepaid that in 1996 for street renovation in our neighborhood, although 51st Avenue North, to my recollection, that of Ms. Davison and Mr. Jepson, was not improved at the time, and I don't think it would be being improved now if it had been. And yet we don't abut a street, and we paid that general, neighborhood renovation assessment of almost $900 at that time. So I thank you for your consideration. And again, it just seemed that the way that the standard formula is applied in this case, to me as a non-lawyer, as a layperson, seems like it results in an unequal treatment of those properties with large lots. I thank you very much.
Thank you for your testimony. That was the only person that signed up. If there's anyone else that wishes to testify, I take that testimony first so staff can respond to questions in aggregate. Anyone else speak? Anyone else sign up? Anyone else to speak? If staff would respond to some of the questions, I believe they refer to, sorry, Councilmember Yang. Sorry about that.
Mr. Chair, would it be appropriate to ask a question of the gentleman who just testified?
Certainly, it can clarify your understanding of his testimony.
Mr. Stratton, can you come up to the podium? Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
I really appreciated your letter here, and my question to you is just with regards to a more equitable special assessment, and for you, how would that look?
I really am. I regret that my neighbors did not come today, and I spoke to Ms. Davison this morning, and she frankly had talked to her brother. I won't get into her personal situation, but she frankly said, he said, just pay it. She's not happy. I'll take the liberty, she's 65 and about to retire, but because of certain circumstances, again, the deferral really is not going to help her out. My neighbors, Frank and Kirsten, are both retired, and they have their children living at home, and so they have extended family there, and that's similar. What does an equitable to me look like? I think that 3 times doesn't seem equitable. You're the experts, Public Works are the experts. 10 years to pay what I personally feel is an exorbitant, inequitable amount is, something, but not, life will go on. it seems like there ought to be, whether it's, 2 times, 2.5 times. It just seems to me that, 2.5 times, I think the average for a lot that's fully assessed. If you look at the map, which they had at the meeting, they have these triangles, these pink triangles of influence. Only our lots, the entire lot is included, I believe. Or they charge me at something like 16,000 square feet. So I think, to me, it feels as though something like, twice, even 2.5, but, you're the experts, and it just seems that, hopingly, if I do pay the $3,100, I'm hoping that I won't be assessed if I'm still living in Minneapolis when the streets have to be redone neighborhood-wide, since the rest of the neighborhood doesn't share in the cost of 51st under this formula. Thank you, Councilmember Yang. Does that?
Thank you.
Any other questions from the committee? Seeing none, anyone else wish to testify? If staff, Mr. Kenny, there's some questions around the formula. There are questions around the our unique characteristics taken into consideration for the area, the lot configuration, it being on a bus route, and if not, you can explain that as well.
Mr. Chair, Mike Kennedy and or Suzette Hermstead can address these questions, I believe.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, committee members, I'm not positive I understand what all the questions are, but what I thought is perhaps if Suzette Hermstead could come up and explain how the calculations were made and how it is consistent with how we do things in the with all the other projects and the unique characteristics of this one.
Okay.
That would be helpful.
Okay, very good. Thank you. And then, Councilmember Glidden, do you have comments or questions before the answers?
Well, I just want to say I think the questions kind of go a little bit beyond just a traditional explanation, but let's let Ms. Hermstead go ahead, and then I think I will wait and ask a couple questions after that.
Very good.
Good morning, Chairman Reich and committee members. Suzette Hermstead, Public Works Special Assessments Office. It is the duty of our office to calculate these assessments for street improvement projects. We use an influence area method of assessing, and the map here shows that influence area method that includes streets that are areas of lots that abut the street being improved. Mr. Strand's property is this property here because he has vacated street that accrued to his property when it was vacated that enlarges his lot size. His lot is quite deep. We go a maximum of 165 feet depth from the street, so all of his lot is not included in the accessible area, but it is a large lot, and by area, it is one of the largest assessments in this project. So it is uniform in the method of assessing. It's a rate of 20 cents a square foot, which is uniform for all residential properties that will be in a paving project, in a resurfacing project this year. And it is uniform in the way we assess, and that's by square footage in the influence area.
Councilmember Glidden?
So, just to kind of follow up on this, sometimes it takes some questions at the right time to just prompt us to ask further questions with our staff about the methodology that we've adopted. And so I think it's fair to say that, this is an appropriate place to ask that. I think there's always questions about fairness then to others who have been assessed under this methodology before. And so I just really want to acknowledge that. But, there's some, I think, good questions raised here. Maybe one of them is whether or not there should be some way that we look at whether caps should be applied in comparing to an average assessment. I mean, this just as Mr. Strand is right, this is a resurfacing. The life of this resurfacing is supposed to be 10 years. We hope that it lasts longer, but the life is supposed to be 10 years. And having an assessment of over $3,000 for a residential property for a resurfacing that's only supposed to last 10 years really just doesn't seem to make sense. And so, again, I think you've asked a good question, Mr. Strand, and really helped us by presenting some comparables of looking at different methodologies and what that amounts to. I think another good question for us is whether the methodology that we have adopted maybe perhaps should be relooked at in terms of again, some other ways to look at fairness, because there is some fairness in looking at where is your lot and how much fronts the street. On the other hand, as a residential property owner, I think you kind of, I don't know that many residential property owners particularly seek a corner lot. I mean, that touches two streets. As a homeowner, you're just looking for what's the right size house for you that matches your price and other, attractions of the neighborhood. And then here you are with getting assessed 2 times because your lot happens to touch the street. And I just say that because, and again, we're trying to impact that with the influence zone. And so if my comments have been a little incorrect here, I hope staff will correct me. But I mean, there's just a little something to how much frontage and how we deal with that. Again, I'm not saying that I have any solution. I'm just saying that perhaps this is an appropriate time to look at some of the questions that have been raised. And the amount of the assessment for this particular property, I thought really did hit me as large for a resurfacing. So I'll just put that out there, Mr. Chair.
Right. Thank you. Ms. Hamilton, do you want to comment on this policy suggestion?
Yeah, Mr. Chair and Councilmember Glidden, you are correct. There's always questions and things we can relook at with our assessment policy. And I will say that over the past 5 years or more that we've been doing resurfacing, we have been reviewing the policy, and we staff have our own questions about places where it just doesn't seem quite right, and other places where it works very well. I can tell you that with any assessment policy, there will always be, because the whole legal basis on which we are able to defend assessments is about this uniform assessment rate, and this has served the city very well. There are always challenges with being uniform and then having unique situations where it doesn't feel fair. We would be happy to, and in fact, it is on our list of things that we want to get to, is kind of do a global look at how we do resurfacing assessments. We would be happy to look at Mr. Strand's situation in particular and see if there's any modifications we feel would be justified, and report back before committee of the whole. Just do some analysis there. But also, I can assure you that it is on our longer list of things we want to look at it about. Specifically, is there a better way to handle assessments with regards to resurfacing?
Right. And I just wanted to say that seems like a reasonable way to just allow staff to review and maybe see if they have a recommendation. I want to be sensitive to the fact that as someone who's been on this committee for a number of years, there often are situations that come before us that under our policies, this is the way that we have said that folks are getting assessed. And there is a theory to that fits the law and ways that we've looked at how to do this fairly. So I'm not suggesting that this is a situation of throw everything out. I think our staff does a great job, but just this does seem a good time to raise, as Ms. Hamilton said, there sometimes can be tweaks to look at the situations based on what we've learned over a course of time, especially with the resurfacing. So.
And of course, that exploration will be within the legal bounds and then the common sense of overall fairness. So, Councilmember Bender?
I'm still not understanding why the geometric pattern is interrupted and for those 3 parcels. And I'm sure that this was explained, but because it's this very regular pattern until it gets to those 3 parcels, and I just was looking for some more clarification.
Mr. Kennedy?
Mr. Chair, Councilmember Bender,
it's the vacation of Thomas that makes it so you don't see the triangular pattern. With the vacation of Thomas, the property owners that are adjacent to it will never have to pay for an improvement on Thomas either. But that's what throws this off. Yeah, that's why you see the whole thing. And he's also not adjacent to another road. He's adjacent to an alley. So that's why the influence zone method doesn't work right there.
Any further questions? Councilmember Yang.
I heard from Ms. Hamilton that they're going to look at Mr. Strand's case, and in this situation, I'm just wondering if it's appropriate to make a motion for us to do that, or what do you think is appropriate in the situation?
Councilmember Yang, my suggestion would be that we would approve this, knowing that staff is going to work with the appellant here to see if there's any particular resolution at this time, but that would initiate a larger conversation per Councilmember Glidden's suggestion about overall policy revision moving forward. And I wouldn't want to get too much more specific than that, but that's just my thinking at the time. Councilmember Glidden, do you want to comment on that?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just want to say, I thought that Ms. Hamilton had suggested that she may report back, and sometimes I know staff does this in writing, or they could verbally, with a recommendation. I just wonder if we may want to approve, but with no recommendation for this particular parcel, and maybe Ms. Hamilton or the clerk, Ms. Menchik, could make a suggestion on that motion, just since if there is a change here, we want to make sure that we've flagged it for ourselves, the potential for that.
So we would forward without recommendation, and we would have staff describe how they would make sure the comment and process would be memorialized in writing somehow to us.
Right. I think we want to approve with the exception of this. Maybe we should ask either Ms. Hamilton or Ms. Menchik to make a suggestion on the motion.
Ms. Hamilton?
Just so we don't throw the whole project kind of in the...
Guidance, please.
Mr. Chair, I would suggest that the committee recommend approval of the assessment roll with the exception of this parcel, and direct staff to report back to the committee prior to committee of the whole with a recommendation regarding how to handle this particular parcel. And then what we will do, Public Works staff will convene, and I will send you all an email with what our recommendation is prior to committee of the whole.
I move thusly.
Mr. Chair, I wonder if it is appropriate to include the other two irregularly assessed parcels as well.
Perhaps that would be appropriate. Does staff have comment on that suggestion?
Sure, Mr. Chair and Councilmember Bender. I think that would be appropriate too. You can direct us to review the assessments for the three irregularly shaped parcels and report back with a recommendation prior to committee of the whole.
So we'll amend accordingly. So we have a motion which has been amended per the suggestion of Councilmember Bender. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all approval say aye.
Aye.
Dissenting, that carries as modified. We'll close the public hearing. All right, thank you. Appreciate staff's explanations and for the testimony as well. Okay, moving down. We have a discussion item, the 2014 paving program. Ms. Hamilton.
Mr. Chair, Steve Hay from our Transportation Planning and Engineering Group will make a presentation on this.
I'm not sure what the road looks like. I'm going to drive out there and see.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, council members. My name is Steve Hay with Public Works Department, and I'm going to report briefly on the 2014 street paving program as approved. So I have a few slides that I'll run through quickly that are also in your letter as well. So this is our Parkway paving program. Hopefully you can see that. We have just a few projects in that program that are, again, this is a resurfacing program, not reconstruction. And so these are the projects that are currently scheduled to go this year in 2014. Next, we have what's called our alley renovation program. And again, these are the projects that are currently scheduled for renovation in the coming year in 2014. And then this is PV056 is our residential resurfacing program. So you'll see on the list here several residential neighborhoods that are included as part of this program. Again, this is mill and overlay kind of projects, along with then several other segments of streets throughout the city that are scheduled for mill and overlay here in 2014. And then this is a similar program. This is just our high volume reconditioning program. Again, mill and overlay type projects. These are on our more high volume type roadways and not the residential streets. You'll see that 51st Avenue North is on the list that we just got done hearing about. So these are the projects scheduled to be mill and overlaid out of this program in 2014. And then finally, we have 4 reconstruction projects scheduled to undergo work in 2014, and they're listed here. Minnehaha and Nawadaha Boulevard. PV068 is LaSalle Avenue, and this is really year 1 of a 2-year project. The first year is going to be 12th to Grant Street, and then in 2015 we'll do the remaining segment from 8th to 12th. Penn Avenue, this is the second year of the Penn Avenue project, so this is the remaining piece from 50th to 54th. The other segment was done in 2013. And then finally, we have what's sometimes referred to as Riverside Phase 2, or the reconstruction of 4th Street and 15th Avenue in the Cedar Riverside area. So citywide, this is a map that shows all of the mill and overlay and reconstruction type projects. I know it's hard to read here. I think you have copies of the map. I also have another copy that might be easier to look at if there are specific questions. If not, that concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to try to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions for staff? Councilmember Glidden.
Thanks, Mr. Chair, and thanks for the presentation, giving us an overview of the work that is going to be done. One of the things that has come up in past years is just, and I know I've talked about this with Mr. Matsumoto, but is having an awareness because of impacts on our potential for coordination with jurisdictions that are led by other by projects that are led by other jurisdictions. And so I was wondering if we have a list, for example, of Hennepin County projects or any other projects led by other jurisdictions that would help us understand any synergies that might be found.
Yes, Mr. Chair and council members. I don't have that information necessarily on hand today, but we certainly do have lists of the projects that Hennepin County is moving forward with this year, as well as MnDOT, and we could, I'm sure, assemble that and present it, but I don't have that off the top of my head or in front of me right now.
Right. Well, I would like to request that maybe we are able to see that in some way. I don't know that it needs to be a formal presentation, but I think having that sent to us as the committee and perhaps the council would just help us with understandings. One other just thing that has come up in past years is an awareness of projects by utilities, if they are major. So I might just flag that as well.
So I take that suggestion to heart and maybe forward the information to all council members. Councilmember Yang.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just kind of a quick question, or maybe not, but so I know that certain streets have a schedule. Let's say 26th Avenue North is where I drive pretty much every single day, and I know that's on the schedule for next year. But I mean, I can tell you that the folks who live up there, I mean, feel like that street should have been done years ago. And I'm wondering, I mean, is there a process to rethink those sorts of things so that we can certainly move certain streets, up a year or those sorts of things? Just because, I mean, my alignment and I mean, my residents and their alignments have just been messed up because of that. And so I'm just wondering what your thoughts are around that.
I know in addition to the click process, there may be other things that staff would share with Councilmember Yang.
Yes, Mr. Chair and council members, I'll do my best to answer the question. We consider a number of factors as we try to program these projects, both for mill and overlay type work as well as reconstructions. And you probably know we have a lot more needs than we have funding available to meet those needs. So it's a challenge to try to prioritize, which projects to do at what time and what moves to the top of the list. And again, we consider a number of factors, including the condition of the pavement, how long it's been since work has been done in the area and things like that. And we make our best approach to arranging the program. And the program gets adjusted frequently. I mean, we do sometimes move a project up for various reasons, or maybe move one back for various reasons. Sometimes it's our ability to deliver a project. Sometimes there might be issues in the community that are taking a while to resolve exactly what the project is. So it's always a variety of factors which play into that. And we'd love to be doing more projects more quickly if we had the money available to do them. Not sure if that's a satisfactory answer, but.
And the staff going through their different approaches to the question, all your thinking gets thoroughly vetted by the CLIC process, and that's a year-long process, is my understanding.
Yes, Mr. Chair, that's correct, is that we go through this annual process with CLIC where we present what we are recommending for our program to be, but then CLIC has a chance to weigh in on those recommendations and to agree with us or not, and to make changes or suggested changes as they see appropriate. So that's a big part of it too.
So the citizen input is continuous and thorough.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions? Okay, very good. I really look forward to the day when the weather permits us to do this type of work that you described in your presentation. It seems far off. No further questions. Let's see, I will move to receive and file the presentation as submitted. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Dissenting nay. Thank you very much. We now have another discussion item, which is item 11, St. Anthony Parkway Bridge over the Burlington Northern Santa Fe Northtown Yard project.
Mr. Chair, Ole Mersinger from our Transportation Planning and Engineering Group will make a presentation about this long-awaited project.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, committee members. My name is Ole Mersinger, project engineer with Transportation Planning Engineering. The item before you is the Northtown or St. Anthony Parkway Bridge over Northtown Rail Yard, and it's as as Heidi Hamlin has mentioned, it's a long-awaited project. The project is located in northeast Minneapolis and is surrounded by the Holland, Columbia Park, and Marshall Terrace neighborhoods. The project limits include the bridge structure itself over the BNSF rail yard, Main Street north of St. Anthony Parkway, and California Street northeast, north of 31st Avenue, and also certain work on St. Anthony Parkway as well. The original structure was built in 1925 by the Northern Pacific Railroad, which is a predecessor of current BNSF. BNSF is the current owner of the bridge, It is a fracture critical 5-span worn truss, and it spans 24 tracks within the rail yard. It carries, like I mentioned, Santhie Parkway, which is a municipal state aid roadway, and it has about 5,800 vehicles per day that use it, and at approximately 17% of that involves trucks or other heavy vehicles. And it's also part of the Minneapolis Park Board's Grand Round Scenic Byways as well. So it's a number of different jurisdictions involved with this, both private and public. The bridge today has significant deterioration of certain parts of the floor system, the truss members as well. It is actually load posted, so not all those commercial vehicles are able to use the structure right now. The Metro Transit Bus 11 route actually is detoured from this bridge as well. Its typical route would cross this bridge, but because of loading concerns, they've been detoured since 2011. As part of a inspection that occurred last fall, there was additional deterioration noted for the trail that's located on the south part of the bridge, and that sidewalk trail system has been closed, and there's been other critical findings that are still being investigated by staff with that as well. Along with the structural deficiencies that they've noted, there's also some functional deficiencies. This includes the trail along the south side of the bridge. When it was open, actually is only 6 feet wide, so it's a substandard trail for non-motorized users, and the railing alongside of it is actually very low as well and would not be something we'd use today. In addition, within the rail yard itself, there's actually substandard clearances between the railroad tracks and the piers located within the rail yard. As I mentioned, the current dimensions of the railroad, or excuse me, of the bridge is 2 lanes in each direction, a 6-foot trail on the south side of the bridge, and about a 5.5-foot sidewalk on the north side of the bridge. There's been a number of projects initiated for this structure over the last 15 years, of looking at different rehabilitation and replacement for the structure. In 2010, we were awarded a federal grant for the bridge, and as a part of that, initiated the NEPA process, with stakeholders to investigate rehabilitation or replacement of the structure. Due to the historic eligibility, that is the age of the structure and the fact it was constructed by the railroad, the historic eligibility of the Grand Rounds and the historic eligibility of the railroad corridor, it ended up being a very complex process to obtain those approvals through Federal Highway, MnDOT, State Historic Preservation Office, and MnDOT's Cultural Resource Unit. As part of this, we initiated regular scheduled community advisory, citizen advisory committees with the neighborhoods and stakeholders, and those met generally on a monthly basis to buy input on the structure itself and the project and the process. As part of all this, we've received initial approval from FHWA to replace the structure about a year ago, and have moved forward with some design work for the replacement structure, as well as mitigation for the loss of the structure. The proposed new bridge is a 3-span structure. BNSF, due to their operational constraints within the rail yard, requested that we only install a maximum two piers within the rail yard. 2 of the spans are girder spans, with the final strand being a space frame truss structure. This is an innovative structure that our designers have come up with that allows us to have a load path redundant structure bridge and to no longer have a fracture critical structure as well. And we believe this is the only structure this type within the state of Minnesota. The new crossing will consist again of one drive lane in each direction, a 14-foot multi-use trail on the south portion of the structure, and a 10-foot sidewalk on the north part of the structure. This would be a rendering of the structure looking to the east that our designers have put together. And again, you can see the sidewalks and the trails on there. The CAC and in the public, through the use of some public meetings and open houses, have given us input on a lot of the aesthetics associated with the bridge, including the appearance of the bridge, rustifications on the piers and abutments, and other aesthetics that you can see on the structure here. Moving away from the bridge itself, as I mentioned when I began, there's road work itself on St. Anthony Parkway, where we'll be rebuilding portions of the parkway to meet the new grades required for the structure, and then also restoration for construction activities, as a lot of the construction work will be staged on the parkway itself. Main Street, north of St. Anthony Parkway, is going to be realigned to meet current standards and improve sight lines at that intersection. And California Street will be realigned as well to improve the sight lines at that end of the structure as well. As part of this, we are acquiring new right-of-way for the new alignments of the roadway, and along with temporary right-of-way for construction activities. South of the bridge, California Street is an oil dirt roadway, and as part of the overall project, we're going to improve the infrastructure out there with a bituminous pavement, curb, gutter. We're adding a sidewalk along the east side of the new roadway to improve non-motorized access to the Grand Rounds and St. Anthony Parkway from the Marshall Terrace neighborhood. And we've also met with all the property owners, the significant property owners on the parcel, to get their input and to look at their operational operations along here to make sure we can facilitate them with proper curb cuts and that sort of thing. So schedule-wise, we're in the process of completing the design within the next month or so and finalizing right-of-way negotiations. And we anticipate construction starting possibly late this fall, but for certain in 2015. With that, any questions?
Any questions for the presenter? Seeing none, I will comment, being familiar with the project, that it's, as you described it, those steps with the multiple jurisdictions, the multiple characteristics that had to be taken into account, including the Grand Rounds designation, the complications of working with one of the busiest rail areas in the region, actually. Very significant, and I just commend staff for the work they've done, not getting into the details, but the fact that for such a long time it seemed like an endless marathon, and now you've had to shift gears into a pretty frantic sprint. So it's very, very commendable effort on the staff to keep this moving forward. And the community is extremely pleased with how you engage them. I think the end product that you described was a great collaboration between the technical and the community insights. And you're creating not just a mode of transportation, but truly a signature asset for the community and their identity and their history. Really wonderful work to witness on my end. So thank you for that. Councilmember Glidden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I wanted to thank you for your remarks because it is a big accomplishment to get to this point, and I also wanted to acknowledge that just there was significant work that had to be done with our intergovernmental partners, Congressman Ellison's office in particular, to be able to allow this project to move forward. So just really amazing work by the department with actually a lot of collaboration from others within the city to make sure we were able to move this forward. And I know we've also had questions at the legislature about moving it forward, and here we go. So thank you very much.
Thank you for those comments. Councilmember Gordon?
Well, I just wanted to chime in and say how great it is to see this project coming forward. I remember being on this bridge early on with a big tour that I took about 8 years ago when I was first on the council, and everybody agreed we need to get this thing fixed, and it's really at risk, and it's too bad it took so long, but it's wonderful that we're here, and it seems like we have so much support from the community, and we're really leveraging it to make some other improvements in the area, and I appreciate that.
And I know it was mentioned in the report today, but it really is a significantly unique structure that's being presented here. It's not only the only one of this type in the state, I think it's one of the few modern trusses in North America, period. And I think some of those other examples that I had seen were through trusses. This is even a little bit different than that style of modern truss. And it's significant in the sense that up until these techniques have been developed, you couldn't do a truss type bridge because of the fracture critical or lack of redundancy that of course has been urged since the famous collapse of '07. And so for those people in community TV land and happen to be engineer nuts, this is a big deal. Any further comments? Seeing none, we'll receive and file the update that was presented to us today. No receive and file. Oh, there are some actions. Strike that. Oh, here we go. We have the actions before us. Approve the St. Anthony Parkway project proposed bridge layout, including the realignment of California Street and Main Street Northeast. Approve a resolution designating the location of improvements to be made of the project. Receive the cost estimate of $1,300,000 for the reconstruction of California Street Northeast and Main Street Northeast. The list of the benefited properties. Direct the city engineer to prepare the proposed special assessments at the resurfacing assessment rate against the benefited properties. And the final action is to set a public hearing to be held on April 15th, 2014. Any questions on those action items? I will move them as stated. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Dissenting nay. That carries. And I will just note that consent items that were referred from executive committee didn't need action, but I'll call them out. The city engineer, director of public works appointment to consider the charter department head reappointment by the executive committee of Steve Kotke in the appointed position of city engineer, director of public works for a 2-year term beginning January 2nd, 2014. And then item 9 is the Boulevard Vegetation Ordinance changes, and set a public hearing for that March 18th, 2014. And is it correct, City Clerk, we don't need to take action, we just note them? Okay, that is correct. So with that, we are adjourned.